welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Interviews, and this week, this one definitely has a great ending, and this really feels like Stephen King territory. This is starting to really look like a Stephen King book, because the way it's written by Richard Price, it's so excellent and so grounded in reality that it doesn't feel like a Stephen King book. But this part of the story definitely has King elements all over it, but never stops being this great Richard Price story, the teleplay anyway, by it. The direction, again, is great. The performances, again, in this episode are great. The mounting tension as it goes along with the character of Jack being kind of the wild card in this. And now people starting to pick sides on this situation when Holly finally tells them what she thinks, what she found, and all the information that we've been building up since episode probably 3 now. So this is the one about the Yiddish vampire, episode 6. Full spoilers if you have not seen this episode. And I want to thank a lot of the people that have been commenting and watching and subscribing. I really appreciate it. Because this is different. This is such a different kind of show. And it's such a different type of crime show, yet done with the brilliant writing of Richard Price. And while everybody else is watching the Oscars, I chose to watch this because fuck the Oscars, really. But I do want to bring up to that are having a hard time with Ralph and the pictures and him not coming around, not realizing what he's looking at. And I have to just keep trying to remind everybody, and kind of what I've been saying about the description of this show, is we have to remember that this isn't like other shows. Okay, it's like, what if The Wire, okay, a show like The Wire, suddenly had, like, say they went on for like in season 3 or something, right? Or the one about the neighborhood boys, right? I think that was season 3, maybe 4. If all of a sudden that whole story was about somebody was killing kids and it was a vampire, this is how they would handle it. None of the cops would be able to wrap their heads around it, because this show is making us, it's trying to make you feel like you're in our world, really in our world, not in some fantasy world, not in some what-if world where anything can happen. It's just regular-ass TV where we're just supposed to go, come on, Ralph, get on board. It's, there's a monster out there. In reality, we don't believe in monsters. I know people believe in, I'm not saying that people don't believe in monsters. I'm not saying people don't believe in ghosts or whatever. But I would think the majority of people really, when push comes to shove, you say that there's a boogeyman really going to get you. Come on. You're going to be like, fuck off. You're going to be looking for a real, explanation. And so Ralph and the other characters in the show are responding in that way, in a realistic way, to even if somebody's drawing you multiple pictures, it just can't get there. Even I, with a great imagination, would still be like, fuck off, that's not what's really happening. You want to find the human element, because what humans are capable of doing to each other are just as bad as any kind of monster. So Ralph refuses to give in to the fact that there's a real answer out here. There's a human face. There's somebody manipulating things. And he just can't get there yet. It's coming. It's definitely coming. And this episode kind of pushes that forward a little bit for Ralph. Because his uncomfortability throughout this entire episode is palpable. His moving around and shifting in the chair. His uncomfortability with talking to his therapist about what that dream might have really meant. Even when we'll get to all that. But I think that, and even when he was talking to Glory, later on in the episode, his struggle is so real. We want him to get there because we know what's happening. But I don't think that, it's the same kind of like yelling at the screen, like you're yelling at a person in a horror movie, like, don't go in there, come on, you know what's up. They don't know what's up. I mean, even his, like I said, people start to come to different like thought processes throughout this episode. So let's get into it because I've rambled on enough. Because I wrote down, like Ralph's indifference to the drawings is a big part of this. He just can't get there. Now this part here, Holly seeing things now, it's really trying to stop people from getting this investigation further. I don't know how it's getting to her, just like I don't know how it's getting to everybody else. How did it make Powell appear on the bus to make her think that she sees the driver about to run into a semi? Was it because he was in close proximity, or is this thing got some sort of like Professor X kind of mental projection? It's really weird. And it's the only part of the story that kind of bothers me. As far as logistically, this thing can kind of do whatever, but it can't just straight up kill you. I wrote, what the fuck is happening? Like, but she plans on coming there back to town to tell everybody what she found. And that includes Jack, who wants to be involved now that this thing keeps putting the pressure on him, and it's letting off a little bit so that he can get the information that he needs. He wants to be a part of the investigation so he can plot its moves in that very Dracula Renfield way. They also want to bring Glory into this. And I mean, you can kind of tell where this is going to go because Holly is just going to lay it out straight. You've got a lawyer, an investigator, a cop, a CSI, two housewives, and one of them is a widow, and then you've got Jack sitting in the back of the room who, in my opinion, he's the one who should be on medical leave. Like, he just looks awful. But Andy, Holly's new suitor slash helper in the investigation, he finds out that Powell was cousins with Heath, something that we kind of already knew. That Powell dated one of the dead girls, and that her fingerprints were in the car. So it shows the connection to like that maybe Powell took the girls to the thing, right? If he's acting in that kind of weird capacity, is dating one of the girls, why wouldn't she get into the car with him? Or at least if she knew him, why would she feel like there was anything wrong? Just like maybe it used somebody close to Terry to get to the kid. So who was Terry's Jack? And or Powell? We don't know that yet. But this thing uses each person. So Powell was its Renfield to Heath, or for its whatever that looked like Heath, and Jack is its thing right now, which they're saying that. Well, we got to get to that too. There's so much to talk about. Jack picks up Holly, and that freaked me out. But that's kind of like foreshadowing for later in the episode, because he's already grilling her in the restaurant. I love that she just calls him right out. You look like someone's trying to rip your heart out. And he does, man. He really, really does. He does look like a man who's struggling. He is with the wrong person right now. But when she talks to everybody about what's going on, she lays it out. If you've seen the episode, you know what I'm talking about. She lays everything out, and it's perfect. It is perfect. There is nothing, if you hear that information, at the very least, you would be thinking all these cases need to be reopened. Like if more people heard about the the series of events that led up to each of these people being either arrested or convicted or about to be convicted for these murders, you'd at least go, okay, there's something fishy. Maybe you could even get like that one girl a new trial or get her released, the one that's in jail right now. If you showed all that evidence going, this is a series of things that, how could this all be happening to all these people in this kind of close period of time? It would at least be able to do that in reality. Maybe. I don't know. But when she tells everybody that you have to, when you've reached all the other conclusions, it's time for a little reality expansion. It's kind of like what Mulder says, when all of science can't answer, what if we finally reach to the fantastic? Or the Occam's razor kind of thing. The simplest, thing is the correct, is usually the right answer. Maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, but Ralph sitting through this scene is just, I love this, but it's Glory that snaps and tells everybody, what the fuck are you doing? How could why you're wasting our time chasing the boogeyman? But I like how even, the CSI guy, he's like crossing himself and talking about how El Cuco is a thing in all cultures. She's right. Everywhere there's the El Cuco, or the freaking Eastern Europe has the Baba Yaga, there's a story like this everywhere. And even better put is the investigator talking to the lawyer saying, I know that we all know that this is crazy. We used to blame people in the old times for believing this stuff, calling them ignorant, and just it was just how things were. They couldn't explain things, so they just invented demons and witches and all this stuff. And he's like, but what if, after all this time, every once in a while we mistake a demon for a human? And the guy doesn't take him seriously. He tells him the story of the Yiddish vampire, which is kind of funny, but I mean, it opens the door and it shows that they're all, some of them are trying to keep an open mind. It doesn't necessarily believe, and none of them are outright saying that this is El Cuco. And I'm sorry, my thing is acting a little laggy, but it's Sunday night and everybody's online. But Jack or Ralph just can't get there. But the CSI guy tells Ralph, if this all tracks, that means Claude Bolton's next. He got scratched by Terry. And Ralph's just like, well, I'm just going to do real detective work. You can go do whatever you're doing. The phone trick that Holly does is really cool. I like that. She does basically a blacklight trick on Ralph, or for Ralph and his wife, to show that thing was sitting in the chair. This perks up Ralph a little bit, but then they talk about how this substance has not yet been identified. How long's it been? And she's like, well, it's because they're only looking for humans. They're not looking for animals. They're not looking for unexplained. And then they're going to just go ahead and they're going to write it up as contaminated. And that's true. That'll be what happens. It's not going to be, again, like the X-Files, where somebody comes to the conclusion and says this can only be, by definition, extraterrestrial. But, or whatever. But it's a nice point in the right direction. And then Jack, not able to stop her, even though he's getting "stop her" written in blood, or maybe that was shit on the wall. I don't know. I don't even know how that got up there. Then it starts crawling into his hands. But I think it's all mental. I don't think that that's actually happening. It's just making him see these terrible things. Now, I don't know if he was having a full-on Fight Club moment when he went home, when he gets the shit kicked out of him by veteran HBO actress Denny Dillon. If you don't know who Denny Dillon is, she was in one of the very first HBO original shows called Dream On. She's, wow, I had forgotten that she was even, like, I'm not going to say, I honestly kind of thought maybe she was dead. But she's not. That's Denny Dillon. She used to be a little Spitfire. And she kicks the shit out of him. Was it really her, or did he beat the shit out of himself? And we just saw it in an interesting way that his mind was making that. Ralph seeing Glory, trying to tell her, I'm still planning on finding this guy. There's an explanation out there, and I'm not gonna stop looking. Because this is kind of a sad scene because she's basically saying, if this is what you have, if this is what it's come to, the boogeyman, then maybe my husband really, maybe we need to accept that maybe my husband really killed that kid. And that breaks like Ralph's heart in a way. And I was like, and it even went to me like, oh man, like, I didn't even think about that. That given all of this work and then her facing that this is what you're coming up with at this point, then maybe my husband really was a murderer. And that's sad. We also find out that the CSI guy is keeping tabs on Claude, which I like a lot. And Holly telling Ralph that this thing is doing this because it's vulnerable. Why would it be doing this if we couldn't stop it? Which is a very interesting thing. That it's being desperate. It's why it's living in the woods. Somebody's actually closing in on it, or at least it thinks it's being closed in on. But does that mean it stopped doing what it's doing? Because it's got to usually go through some sort of transformation. Is this, if it can't transform into something, what happens then? And then at the end, Jack's plot, after he gets the crap kicked out of himself and that got the bubbles that look like radiation burns popping back on his neck, plots to get Holly alone to go to the barn, I think to the barn, or wherever, to show her evidence that only she should see. Don't tell anyone else. That's another part of the episode I don't like is her just saying, oh, yeah, let's do that. Let's do this thing where I don't tell the people that are already ready to fire me that I'm going to be the only one who gets to see this evidence. He's a cop. He should be sharing it with the other cops. He should be saying, guess what I have? Not her, them. So that's the only bit of the story that I kind of call bullshit on as far as reality and how it's so grounded. But this is classic King stuff here. Not just the Denny Dillon scene that is very King, like somebody seeing somebody that ain't there from their past that should be dead and they kick the crap out of them. But this part where classic villain Stephen King stuff, where the villain quite possibly could be killing our character Holly. King's very well known, I think, for taking out a fan favorite from a book. Somebody that you really like while you're reading it, and then suddenly they get fucking murdered and taken out. It's happened in a lot of his books. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, that she's going to for sure die. Because I saw the trailer for next week, and they leave it up to anything could happen next week. It don't look good for either of them. But I would not, this is classic King stuff, and I would not be surprised in the least if Holly dies next week. I hope she doesn't. I hope not. But if anybody else can agree with me there, this is, King likes to punch you in the gut. And I think that if Holly were to die, I think this is the kind of thing that wakes Ralph up. Plus it'd be extra tragic because she sees the marks on his neck. And from the trailer for next week, if you haven't seen it, he's talking to her about, she clearly, he and her know what's up. He knows that she knows. Which makes it even more dangerous because how can he let her go now? So anyway, fantastic episode. Really, really well done. Couple of bullshit moments, but they're very minor. So if you like this review, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications. You can find me on Twitter at reviews_gun. Again, thanks everybody who's been watching these, subscribing, making comments, leaving all your extra info and well thought out ideas about this show. I really love that this show has got an audience. And we will see you next week on episode 7 of The Outsider. Bye.